morning. We resume the fourth meeting of the Joint Select Committee on the Miscellaneous Provisions Local Government Reform Bill 2019. This public hearing is being broadcast on Parliament Channel 11, Parliament Radio 105.5 FM, and the Parliament's YouTube channel, ParlView. My name is Clarence Rambarat. I chair this committee. I now invite my colleagues on the committee to introduce themselves, starting with the member on the right.
Thank you very kindly, Mr. Chairman. Camille Robinson Regis, member.
Good morning to everyone. Esmond Ford, member.
Good morning, Derup Timal, member.
Good morning, Kazim Hussein, member.
Good morning all, Garvin Simonet, member.
Good morning, Paul Richards, member.
Good morning, Anthony Garcia, member.
Morning, Suraj Ramachan, member.
This committee is supported by the Parliament. We have Ms. Keret, Ms. Janki Prasad, and Ms. Ramkisoon. We are also supported by the technocrats from the Chief Parliamentary Council's office and from the Office of the Attorney General. This is our fourth meeting. In previous meetings, we've been able to engage various stakeholders. On the last occasion, stakeholders from the Ministry of Planning and Development, Town and Country Planning, Fire Services, WASA, TNTech, ODPM, the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government, and the Ministry of Health. Today we've invited a group that really gets further into the heart of the matter. We've invited in particular representatives from the business associations, some of them, representatives from the various vending associations, and these representatives are drawn from three areas: the city of San Fernando, the city of Port of Spain, and the borough of Chaguanas. At later sessions of this committee, we'd invite business associations and vendors from other municipalities. We also have the Ministry of Works, and in particular, the traffic warden section of the Ministry of Works, and Trinidad and Tobago Association of Local Government Bodies, and other representatives. So I now invite you for the record to quickly introduce yourself.
Peter Faustin, representing the Association of Local Culinaries Ambassadors.
Anthony Roberts, representing the Trinidad and Tobago Association of Local Government Authorities.
Good morning, Navin Ramsingh, Acting Director of Highways, Ministry of Works and Transport.
Good morning, Sonia Francis Yearwood, Permanent Secretary Acting, Ministry of Works and Transport.
Good morning, Randolph Protein. I'm the Chief Traffic Warden.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Gregory Aboud, Downtown Merchants Association.
Good morning, Brian Headley, Assistant Commissioner, Municipal Police.
Good morning, Inspector Miriam Alexander Sanka, Municipal Police.
Good morning, Anthony Charan, representing the Felicity Business Development Association.
Good morning, Kiran Singh, Greater San Fernando Area Chamber of Commerce.
Good morning, Zahir Ali, Kunopia Chamber of Commerce.
Hi, good morning, Ms. Joyce Simon, representing High Street San Fernando Clothing Vendors Association. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I now invite member Kazim Hussein to lead us off this morning.
Okay, good morning, Mr. Chairman and all members present, and our main stakeholders for this morning proceedings. I will go straight into the chairman of the Trinidad and Tobago Association of Local Government Authorities, and I know, Mr. Chairman, that you have a great responsibility with this reform because you represent most of the local government practitioners throughout the 14 corporations. And I'm sure you have a lot to say, and you are part of the process we reached at this stage today. I would like to ask you, what are some of the main grievances or recommendations that your association would like this reform, to be included in this reform, and this Joint Select Committee?
Thank you very much. Chairman, it would be remiss of me if I, in beginning, that I did not take the time to commend the government of Trinidad and Tobago for its bold and innovative approach to local government reform. I want to thank them for seriously attempting to deal with issues that have been plaguing the system of local government for decades. And so their commitment to the changes, which will be down to the provision of more efficient goods and services to the citizenry. Having said that, Mr. Chairman, I want to refer to Section 17 of the bill, which speaks to the members of council, that is the mayors, aldermen, and councillors, shall be eligible for such remuneration as may be determined by the minister. It is an approach that we fully support, because I wish to say that practitioners have suffered under the hands of the Salary Review Commission. We believe that they do not understand clearly the role and responsibilities of practitioners. And to highlight this, the award made in November of 2013, to date, practitioners have not benefited. Right? Most of the practitioners have not received what is intended to be passed on to them. So I would wish to ask the Joint Select Committee that the minister should not only consider or determine the remuneration, and to do it in consultation with my organization, the Trinidad and Tobago Association of Local Government Authorities. We represent both sides of the political divide. So all practitioners in local government are members of this organization. So we ask that whatever the process in determining the remuneration, that we be consulted as a body, and more so that the minister should consider a full package of terms and conditions of engagement for practitioners. And that is to say things like pensions, because we have had members who have been in the local government for more than 30 years and had to leave for whatever the reason, and they leave without one black or red cent. And we think that this is an ideal opportunity to change this. The vehicle loans, so that they should be able to move around and to execute their duties, and other issues such as medicals. So we ask that the Joint Select consider this request from our organization. In mentioning remuneration, Mr. Chairman, I would assume that members will now be full-time. It is not clear in the legislation, unless I missed it. All right. The business of the people, to represent people, is too important to be considered to be a part-time responsibility. And as a result, since you're going to pay a salary, I would take it that members of council will now be full-time, and it should not be considered to be a part-time hustle. All right. I just want to refer to one other quickly, because I think that the bill did make some significant changes and give some additional responsibilities to members of council. I want to look at the subsidiary legislation. I wish to call it subsidiary legislation. There are a number of other pieces of legislation. For example, the Burial Ground Act, the Recreational Ground Act. And these, I think the changes to some of these pieces of legislation is a little too cosmetic. And we should go into those pieces of legislation in a little more detail. For example, some of the more urban municipalities, given their population size, they're experiencing grave difficulty, and you can excuse the pun using the word grave, to find burial space. For example, we now have 2 of the municipalities who are contemplating the coming together to establish a crematorium. And I think it is important at this time to look at that legislation a little deeper, right? As well as the funeral parlors. I don't think that we have any sort of regulation to regulate their activities. I mean, we see them popping up all over the country, and I don't think that we have the kind of regulation to look at them. As well as we have a number of private cemeteries that really don't come under the purview of the local government bodies. We don't know who is buried there. We don't know when and what kind of records that the private cemeteries are keeping. And as such, we would hope that you would bring them under the umbrella, especially in these times, so that we can have some kind of supervision that takes place there. I wish to rest
Thank you very
at this time,
much,
Chairman.
Chairman Roberts. I would leave it to my colleagues to explore with you the first and second points, the SRC and the part-time versus full-time. And in relation to the third point, I want to just make the point that this bill seeks to amend the existing municipal corporations legislation. And in making those changes to that piece of legislation, there are consequential changes to maybe 10 or 12 other pieces of legislation, including the one that deals with burial grounds and other pieces of legislation. So it is not the intention to overhaul those pieces of legislation, but only make those changes which arise out of the changes we are making to the Municipal Corporations Act. However, we've taken note, and of course we welcome the submissions in the future from the association in relation to those pieces of legislation in the manner you've addressed that one piece relating to burial grounds. I thank you very much. I want to invite Member Richards.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. I would like to direct my question to members of the business associations here. I'll start with Mr. Aboud and possibly Mr. Charan and Singh and others can chime in. My question is in relation to sections 35B and 35C and 35A in specific relation to A1, the corporation shall establish administrative divisions with the following responsibilities, and included in these generally are, and I'll just quote from B in this instance, the division of the corporation with responsibility for corporate services, performing human resource planning, resource development, industrial relations, also in terms of the economic research and planning and the local economic development units that are envisioned in these local government bodies. And how do your business associations see this working in terms of developing stronger business entities, in the case of Mr. Aboud, certainly Port of Spain being the capital, and working more closely with the Port of Spain City Corporation, and for the others in their areas, in their municipalities, in terms of developing small and medium-sized businesses and supporting and sustaining those kinds of businesses to the benefit of the national community. So let me start with Mr. Aboud on that.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Richards, and Mr. Chairman and your committee, thank you very much. I would like to just say before I say anything else that I find it rather refreshing to see members of the two sides of the House sitting together on one table. And if I could, I would like...
3 sides.
Sorry?
3 sides.
Okay.
Independence also.
But I would like to suggest that, as it is done in the United States, that instead of sitting on 2 sides of the House, that perhaps we could sit in the House according to the geography of the constituency, so that, you know, if one party wins Tunapuna, he would sit next to the other party that won Arima and so on. And that way, while you were sitting next to each other, you could speak to each other the way I saw Mr. Garcia speaking to Mr. Ramachan, you know, and we could foster... I'm sorry to encumber your precious time with this suggestion, but it is a hope that all of us have, you know, for the future. So thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and your committee for inviting us and in consulting with us as key stakeholders. Mr. Richards, could you refer me to the page? I made notes of it last night.
The page, so in my...
Yeah, in the bill itself.
In the bill itself.
Yeah.
Would be page 18.
18. Because there are a number of other responsibilities. So let me thank you again and say that we are very happy
18, 19, and 20, sorry.
Yes, thank you, I have it. Very happy to be here because we are very interested in the survival of our towns and cities. And the local government authorities that manage the towns and cities are the ones that they design more or less the rules that we live by. And it is upon the basis of those rules that we determine whether those cities will have a chance or not at growth or stagnation or tragically shrinkage. We do see some flaws in the mechanism for management, and that is why I'm happy to be able to contribute to you this morning. I would like to generally say that some of the concerns we have about the points that you have raised and the function of those committees and the responsibilities of the local government authority, in our case, the Port of Spain City Council, to me, create some doubt as to what the specific responsibilities would be between the central government and the local government. So that traditionally, we have had a tremendous impact from central government deciding on the policies that are implemented within our towns and cities. And this here proposes to give some of those responsibilities to the local government authority.
If I could just interrupt, and I don't have the exact portion. In our last public hearing, there was a disaggregation between complex.
Yes, it's in this as well.
Yeah, and that made
yeah. Complex, but you see, that is so subjective, and the lines are so blurred with respect to what is complex and what is simple. I would like to say this.
Sorry.
Yes.
Mr. Aboud, just to say that the Planning Act makes it very clear what is complex and what is simple. So there is no blurring of the lines. It's very clear, complex is over a certain number of buildings and so on, or a certain request, and simple is
Okay.
within us. So it's not blurred at all.
Okay, well, let me-
And we're trying to make sure that with the combination of that piece of legislation and this, that the work of planning is carried out in a more efficient.
Yes.
Yes. So
I appreciate
it's
that.
not blurred.
Okay, well, let me broaden my reply to you then to say that having read this in the short time that I was given, because we were only given a copy of the bill on Tuesday, but having read it in the time since, I would have a simple question to ask of all of you, which is, what is so different about what you are doing here than what previously obtained? And let me give you my answer before you correct me or agree with me. To me, the big issue here is that you are going to allow the local government authority to keep the taxes that it raises on residential property. That, to me, is the, leg and thigh in the chicken and chips box that this bill is. The rest of it is, side dishes of change the name of the treasurer to financial controller and change the fines. The business community will face much higher fines for non-compliance and so on and so forth. But the spirit of the Central Government Act, to me, is not highly amended by this bill or reformed. And I know from my own research, because as I said, we know the impact of central government. I know what took place at independence, how the central government operated at independence, and what has happened since then. The principal difference between what we had at independence and what we have now is that the government has taken all of the taxes collected by local governments and put it into a consolidated fund, and then asked the councils to apply to the government with a requisition for its needs. Now, that is unfortunately referred to in this as a budget, which is incorrect, because a budget really speaks about what you are going to spend and how you're going to raise it. But in the central government that we now have, they only spend, they don't raise it. The central government is who enjoys the taxes, and then the central government disperses to the local government authorities. So what would happen if the central government didn't do that function anymore and the local government was responsible to pay for all of its services, is that the local government would be far more interested in the outcome that occurs in the towns and cities. In other words, if your tax on the business community was based upon property value, then you would want property value to be high, because the higher it was, the more tax you would collect. And therefore, you would not remove all the parking and send wreckers into tow cars, because that will destroy the value of the property, and you would collect less tax. But that's exactly what you've done. You disconnected the decision makers from the outcome. So the decision maker makes a choice to allow a street to be used for a certain purpose or to not allow parking on a particular street. If you were to go, for instance, to Abercrombie Street, you would see that there were one business or two left on the street and 17 closed, because the wrecker comes up from South Key and goes up Abercrombie Street every time it returns to Port of Spain and has picked up every car that was there. That does not affect the Port of Spain City Council, because at the end of the year, whether or not they collected taxes or got a percentage of the revenue, because another mechanism for collecting taxes is turnover. Turnover is a method used in developed societies to collect tax. So that, for instance, the City of New York collects a sales tax, which is a percentage of all the sales that the businesses in the City of New York make. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
I just want to make sure we keep our trend of thought. So you're going into some suggestions.
Well, I'm just trying to give you a little broad context of the worry we have.
I just want to address the first point you made in relation to the intention and the content of the legislation. And I want to say this: the government, successive administrations have proposed local government reform. And the government, I don't know if DOMA was involved, but there was a process involving consultations in the 14 municipalities. Were you involved in the
No.
one? Right.
I'm sorry, Chairman, no, we were not.
There were consultations which were well attended, and based on those consultations, a document was produced, and that document went through further distillation, further consultations, out of which this bill was produced. And the government had the opportunity to proceed with the bill through a full debate, but when it was laid in Parliament by Honorable Minister Kazim Hussain, the decision was taken to put it before a joint select committee to give those persons who may have contributed in the 14 consultations and those persons like yourself who have not. And the reason for this JSC is to get the views of everybody. The second thing is that the bill proposes fundamental changes. I accept that you received the bill recently, but this bill was laid several weeks ago, and the discussion has been in the public domain for more than 3 years. The bill identifies a critical issue in the relationship between the corporations and central government, and that is the need to go through a line ministry. And the bill establishes a direct relationship between the corporations and the Minister of Finance. That's the first thing. The second thing is that the bill sets out the framework in which municipal bodies would be required to ultimately handle their own affairs in terms of financing their affairs. But to get there, we have to get there incrementally. And the source of revenue that is targeted in this bill is the residential taxes. Now, I want you to keep also uppermost in your mind that the government has proposed an overarching structure to deal with the collection of taxes in the country, the TTRA. And I hope that when the time comes, you would articulate your views on that and recognize the need, not for the country to only establish taxes and taxation rates, but also to collect and to make sure that it is spent in the way it is spent. The bill also deals with, for example, in the Planning and Facilitation of Development Bill, the responsibility for what is described as simple projects devolves to the municipal bodies. And in order to execute that, these municipal bodies have to have the human capacity. So the bill establishes a structure, an administrative structure made up of divisions and job titles and so on, with a view to allowing corporations to, over time, be able to manage administratively and technically their own affairs. So there are significant changes in relation to the structure, and one of the things that would come out of our discussions today and throughout the Joint Select Committee meetings on this issue is how it's going to benefit or hurt those who require the services of municipal bodies, which is every citizen of this country falls into a municipality. And I will now return to where you left off.
Thank you.
Which is your suggestion on how municipal bodies can raise taxes.
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman. And you know, it is often the case in the discourse that takes place in the national environment that suggestions and or concerns are sometimes interpreted as complaints or condemnation even. I understand when I read this that a lot of effort has gone into producing it and that a lot of thought has been given to the idea of reforming what we have, which is clearly not working as well as it should. I do not mean to devalue the effort that has been made. I am only trying, as they say in a court of law, to assist the bench.
Well, let me add one C. You said concern and condemnation, and I would tell you what I provided was clarification.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I'm just saying that I don't want to be wrongly interpreted and to say that we still have great hope We still have great hope. So let me say this then, to short circuit what because there are a lot of other contributors here, particularly from the other business centers. The data suggests that the towns and cities of the country are not faring well in commerce. That is what the data suggests. The data suggests that all of the towns, whether they are San Fernando or any of the others, are not faring as well as they used to. The conditions are chronic with respect to many of the issues affecting these towns and cities, and from a planning point of view, you can see or measure the gross disparity in investment, financial investment, between what has taken place within the towns and cities and what has taken place outside. And it's hugely unbalanced. There is probably, for every $1 invested in a town or city, there is probably 1,000 or 50,000 invested outside in all of the gargantuan shopping centers and so on. And there are a lot of issues affecting the inner cities that are not attended to, the towns and so on, which have caused this and which are within the powers of the central and local government to help us with, but to which we do not get.
Mr. Aboud, excuse me.
Yes.
When you're making your point, could you just probably give one or two suggestions that you could be referring to in terms of
what the problems are?
Yeah, like that's
Okay.
not all, but at least the major one, if while you're saying, in terms of the disparity between the towns and the country.
And the commercial centers, well, the issues that the investment in those centers provide that we can't compete with are the issues that drive the customers there. And they're primarily based upon a friendly environment, a convenient environment. And the key issues, which you all know, security is a big issue. I mean, when you drive into a shopping center or a mall, you are behind a barrier or a gate or a boundary that determines it to be private property, and it is managed as such. Nobody can come in there and tell you what to do and what not to do, or tell you that you park 6 inches from the corner and tow you away. That's a private property, and the people that run it for the interest and benefit of their customers. What takes place in the towns and cities is not the same in terms of convenience and friendliness. Then there is a question of security behind that boundary, and it doesn't have to even be a fence. It could just be a curb wall, but behind that curb wall, the people have their security who have the power to enforce the rules of the compound. Then they have parking. They provide parking for their customers. The towns and cities have not done so. And if you were to go to most of the developed countries of the world, in Toronto, you would find municipal parking. It's right at the end next to the train station, so people park and then take the train. We don't have that. We don't have any municipal parking. In fact, what we have is a constant revision of the parking to reduce it so they could tow more cars. And I must say, if you don't mind, I would like to harp on the question of towing cars, Mr. Chairman, just for a second, to say that it is obvious to anybody who pays even a second's attention to it, that the objective really is not to prevent people from parking. The objective really is to let them park and then tow them away. Because if you wanted them not to park, you'd put a sign on the island outside Jean Pierre Complex when Marshall have his Monday show. You'd put a sign on the island saying no parking, but you don't do that. Or you'd put a sign which says if you park here, you'll get towed away, but you don't do that. What you do is you wait until 10:30 when everybody's inside, and then you come and you tow away 600 cars. I mean, this is what we're doing. I'm just trying to represent it to you so that we could change the system a little bit. So let me come quickly to the meat of my response to you.
Before you move on, sorry. We have a few members who...
Yes, sure.
So
thank you,
Member Robinson Regis, followed by Member Ramachan. Are there any other members with Member Sanguinet? Thank you very much.
Yeah. I just wanted to say before you moved on from that issue of parking, first of all, there has to be a certain level of discipline in terms of where people, you can't just let citizens park wherever they feel, because the roadway has to be fairly clear in order for other citizens to enjoy the roadway. In addition to that, the government has put in place an incentive for people to build car parks. There is also the government's car park. So when people don't take advantage of the car parks that are available and they park where they're not supposed to park, there can be no result other than they will be towed. So I mean, we have to instill a certain level of discipline in the country. You can't just let people do whatever they want. And even when we have there are concerts in the Jean Pierre complex, there's parking inside, there's usually parking at St. John's Ambulance, and also they do have no parking signs. And if people park where there is a no parking sign, you cannot fault the wreckers for picking them up when they're parking illegally. So I'm really not understanding that point. So I don't know if there's further clarification you wanted to give on that point, because there is car parking that's made by the government, and there are also private car parks that are available. So people can't just park willy-nilly.
Thank you very much, Madam. You know, your response with the greatest of respect is usually what we get when we raise the issue. And the point is that on the question of having to keep the street clear and wanting to give as much space as possible for the traffic and the pedestrians and so on, those rules have been varied for other reasons, which I don't want to get into. But the governments and the local governments have varied the rules about who can use the street and what can be done with the street to suit other purposes. For the question of parking, there is a direct and irrefutable connection between parking and commerce. So that, and on the question of people can't park anywhere, nobody's asking that they be parked anywhere. But if you drive through the streets of Port of Spain today, right now, when you leave here, you will notice that there are very vague instructions about where we can and cannot park, and very vague instructions about which streets they will be towing from. I don't want to get into that too much. I was only illustrating the point. And I do, as you know, commend the government. And it was our suggestion to our previous Minister of Finance, which was adopted by the current Minister of Finance, to his credit, which brought the credit for the construction of multi-level parking to fruition, and which has already seen 2 multi-level parking garages in the city of Port of Spain. And by the way, the government parkade is already full. It's not an option really for most people, but it is also a welcome addition to the parking stock. So let me just say, Chairman, I'm sorry, you wanted me to answer Mr. Ramachan?
Member Ramachan and then Member Sanguinet.
Yes.
Sorry, Simonet.
I think that Mr. Aboud's contribution is important, because what he is really beginning to reflect is the absence of an intelligent discourse that should be taking place on a continuous basis between not just government and the associations, but between the municipal corporations and the associations. You know, I want to just put this inside. Governance is not just about what a government does or a local corporation does. Governance is about what everybody does together. And we miss that point often in this country, that you don't elect a government simply to govern on your behalf. You elect a government to govern with you. So this has to be a continuous participative thing. Now, coming through what he's saying is that there seems to be, in my mind, a decision has to be made. Do we want to redevelop our towns and maintain their character, their culture, their history, their traditions, or do we just want to see them fail? That's a deep question, and that's a policy decision. And that's the whole question of urban renewal, and who's going to undertake it? And he is probably correct. If local government corporations can raise enough money, they can probably engage in the kind of renewal that is necessary. I think that there's a responsibility to keep the towns and to develop the towns, because I cannot see you just giving everything away to malls and so on, you know, all over the place. You have to keep the character of your towns. There is importance in that history and tradition and everything else. How will it feel to think that you have the cathedral, you have the Anglican church, you have all these beautiful buildings in Port of Spain, but you do not have economic activity to support this rich history and culture? So I think that his point about parking has to be looked at in a broader sense. I think that there is a role here for the Ministry of Planning, in that when we approve building plans, we should do it in a way that also accommodates parking in those buildings, whether it's multi-level parking on the building or whether it's basement parking or what have you. because it's very difficult to find land in the towns to find parking. So we have to deal with how we approve buildings and how they are constructed in order to accommodate that. I just want to say that in terms of local government and this bill, we have to be careful always that we do not establish laws that are going to destroy economic activity. There has to be a balance between what Minister Regis talks about, discipline and order, but at the same time, it must not frustrate economic development. Port of Spain is important, like San Fernando, for jobs and job creation for many disadvantaged communities around Port of Spain. And if you allow Port of Spain to die and business activity not to flourish, you're going to have more serious social problems than you have. And therefore, it's incumbent upon local government, in my view, to do all that it can to work hand in hand to balance the impact of laws against, the flourishing of economic activity. And I think that, that is how I understand the point being made by my friend. But before I go, Mr. Chairman, I just want to ask Mr. Roberts, I totally agree with your contribution, but is there a benchmark that you have with respect to salaries and remuneration for local government councillors or for mayors and chairmen? Do you have a benchmark in mind or something we can compare with?
At present, we are giving it consideration because we hope that we will have the opportunity to have discussion with the minister.
Thank you.
Chairman, if I could just, because the question I posed to Mr. Aboud and his colleagues was in vein with what Member Ramachan articulated, and it really was with a view to trying to understand from Mr. Aboud and his colleagues in the business community's perspective exactly what Mr. Aboud spoke about. I know we spoke a lot about parking, but it's really symptomatic of what philosophically what I asked about is based on what you've seen. I know there's an economic research and planning division envisioned in the bill. Do you see a more formalized role for collaboration between business entities and the local government bodies to facilitate that? And if you don't, or if you do you have a suggestion that would enrich the bill to facilitate that, to deal with exactly what you articulated there, parking and everything else, that would facilitate business? So that was really the crux of my question.
Yes, thank you. Yes, of course, we do see a role of active collaboration. We have, in the past, endeavored to do that.
And sorry to interrupt you. And the intent is great, but from where I sit, I would like a suggestion on a more formalized, whether in regulations or otherwise, so that there is not an option for municipalities not to collaborate effectively with business entities, etc., so that we can move past, well, we didn't like the level of collaboration. You understand what I'm talking about?
Yes, I do. If I could, I don't want to take more time than I am because, but this is such a critical moment, and, I'm very grateful for the opportunity. To deepen the response to that, let me say this. We have made representations to 3 successive governments, not to this one, but to the government that preceded this and to the 2 before that, for enactment of legislation to bring into life what is known as the Business Improvement District Law. And that law is simple. It's like a condominium law. You would bring an act to Parliament that would obligate anyone that owns a property or operates a business in a city center to contribute towards a business improvement fund, which would be placed under the control of a committee that is made primarily of business people, so that they would then obligate those who participate to contribute money, and that would give them a fund. And from that fund, they could do a lot of the things that we cannot do for funding, such as security, advertising, Christmas decorations, and the rest of it. The fact is that we know the culture of the country, and you and I know that when you have a neighborhood cleanup, only 25 or 30% of the people respond. When you have security patrol citizen security, only 30%, 40%. I can tell you in the city of Port of Spain, and other business associations will bear me out. It is not everybody that supports the association financially. They all want the help, and everybody wants to dance, but nobody wants to pay for the band.
Do you see that sort of fund as being collected and administrated by the municipalities as envisioned in this?
Not
in
by the
collaboration,
municipalities.
but by whom?
But by the business community. And what it would do is it would organize the business community into a more cohesive group that could deal with central government, meet with them, suggest, and work together to create a better outcome. And, and we don't bring this to you as some sort of new invention. This is what saved Times Square in New York. This is what saved Harlem in New York. This is what saved downtown Chicago. This is what saved Atlanta and Baltimore and Detroit. This is what saved it.
Why I'm kind of steering you back to the bill all the time, because that's what we're here for, with the greatest of respect.
Yes,
You know,
I
so
appreciate
I'm
that.
looking at
But
how we can improve
but
this.
we don't have the opportunity to sit with such an illustrious group of power brokers in the country. We don't. We don't get that opportunity. These days when we write and ask for a meeting, we get a reply from a secretary asking us to send in an agenda, what we want to discuss. And then we often don't get a reply to that. This is a tremendous opportunity, and you did say it was being recorded and broadcast publicly. This is an opportunity to try and make a contribution which I believe is conscientious on behalf of trying to save the towns and cities. Mr. Ramachan mentioned it was important to save the towns and cities because of the historical context. Let me put to you a social context as well. When you go to a shopping mall, you don't see everybody in a shopping mall. You don't see the owners because they have a branch here and a branch there and a branch there. When you come to the city, you see the owner. You get to meet him, you get to understand who he was, where he came from, and how he made it to be where he is today. You cross the street and you see people who have nothing, and you see people who have a lot. And they see each other, and they understand each other, and they are much more clued in to the reality of each other's condition than you would in a shopping mall. A city is a very important social exchange. A town is a very important social exchange in which the citizens from all strata can see each other and meet each other and talk to each other. And it is a very important element of a civil society to save, in my humble opinion. And that is why I'm trying to make these suggestions to you, whether or not. I can tell you that two previous ministers, one was a minister in the ministry and one was actually the Minister of Finance, said that taxes were the most unpopular thing a government could do politically. And what you have come to ask us to do is to impose a tax on the business people. You could go somewhere else with that. We don't do that. That's what he said.
Okay,
But we know. Yes, I'm sorry, Mr.
Thank
Rama.
you very much.
I'm very grateful for your indulgence.
I want to, we have representatives from the various vendors associations, and I want to open with, do we have a representative from the Chaguanas Vendors Association before us? We have the Culinary Association, Mr. Hostin. Mr. Fostin, do you represent the vendors who are in what we call the food court at the Queen's Park, Savannah?
Yes, I do.
Right. So, and how long, are you a vendor yourself?
Yes, I am.
And you've been vending for how long?
For about 18 years there.
Okay, and where are the places you've done your vending in the past? Prior to going to the
originally started there.
At the Savannah?
At the Savannah.
So you've been there for 18 years?
Yes.
And what do you sell?
Corn soup, basically, together with a lot of different soup, cow heel, oxtail, beef.
Right. So a lot of people come to buy from you?
Yes.
Now, in order to do that, in order to vend at the Queen's Park, Savannah, are you required to have any licenses or permits or anything like that?
Well, only, it was a struggle for the past 18 years or so until we signed a memorandum of understanding with the then Ministry of Food and Food Production. Which that MOU went for 1 year. It would have been in 2012.
Right. So at this time, as a vendor at the Savannah, what permits or licenses are you required to have? A food permit, a food badge?
Food badge, yes. Every food handlers
right.
Annually, yes.
And are you required to have a permit to sell in the Queen's Park Savannah?
Permission from the Ministry of Agriculture, who oversees the operation in the general Savannah.
Right. So I want you to focus on the permits, which would be a food badge, or the permit to sell in a particular location, and I want you to talk on behalf of your vendors in terms of what changes you would like to see in how we currently deal with food badges and permits and other things that you encounter in the area that you sell.
Okay. We were allotted a designated area for vending. So we used that in our agreement with the ministry. The ministry, we got that designated area to house 32 entrepreneurs. All right, I wouldn't want to say vendors, but entrepreneurs. But as time went on, when we signed that MOU,
I just wanted to say, I don't want you to get into the specifics of the current arrangement.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm getting to, does your membership believe that in order, first, on the food badges, do you encounter problems in getting your badges? And on the basis of that, do you have proposals to how we could improve that? That's the first thing. And the second thing, does your membership believe that we should have a permitting system where in order to sell in a designated location in the city of Port of Spain, you should be able to apply and maybe pay a fee and get a permit? And the second thing, and what in terms of the services around where you are, do you see the need for better administration, improvements? And it will apply to vending across the country, but I want you to give us how your members feel.
Yes, as in line with the permit, it will be greatly appreciated, because it will help us in, once having that permit, we will not have the hassle in obtaining that food badge, because at present, if one should go there, public health for food badge, they will tell you they're not giving anybody who's selling in the Savannah. All right, so a permit will...
Right. So how did you get your food badge?
Usually for Carnival, we also sell for Carnival. So the Carnival, most vendors may apply through NCC, but because in order to get a booth for Carnival, you need to get a food badge.
So the food badge for the Savannah vendors would it have been for a specific period?
All food badges is for a year.
So in order to sell for the Carnival, you got a 1-year food badge.
A 1-year food
right.
badge.
So you have a valid food badge.
A food badge.
And you believe the permitting for specific location will assist your vendors.
Yes.
But having said that, what are the vendors prepared to pay a fee for that permit that covers the cost of management of the facility in terms of sanitation, security, toilet, washroom facilities? Has your membership considered that?
Yes, and we are willing to pay for any, for those services.
Right. And what other things, as lawmakers around here and policy makers, what other things have you been discussing as a group? What other things you have been proposing that you would like us to hear and the country to hear about today?
All right. Firstly, we don't need any. I will not endorse any permanent structure. The original idea was that we come on afternoons, 5 o'clock, and set up our tents, and by 12 o'clock, midnight, we dismantle the tent, so next morning, the place will be clear. It should be just an evening activity. We were asked by a government official if we wanted a structure, and I told them no. At the time, I was president of the association, and I told them no, because this is what we want, because it's a jewel, all right? And we don't want to depend on the state for electricity or water or what, all right? Although we have water inside there, we have access to water, all right? We don't want to be a burden on the state. So,
thank you very much. Thank you very much. Member Ford has a question to ask, and then I would invite Ms. Dillon, the president of the Chaguanas Vendors Association. Is Ms. Dillon with us? Right. We would invite Ms. Dillon after.
Yeah. Mr. Faustin, you mentioned that the relationship you all possess right now is with Ministry of Agriculture. Do you all have any relationship with the Port of Spain City Corporation for any particular aspect and so on?
At one time, yes, for the year of the MOU. Yes, we did, but not in recent times, no.
Okay. In terms of sanitization of the place, health issues, rats, roaches, rodents, in terms of anything matters along those lines that you all exhibit there?
Well, the last public cry that we had is under Mayor Tim Keys when the city corporation wanted to shut us down for a week or so to sanitize the place. After that, nothing major came out of where city corporation is concerned.
Suggested that you all do develop a relationship with them in order to ensure things are done properly. So public health inspectors don't visit you all along those lines, anything like that?
We haven't had public health inspectors visiting us since after, I think it would have been Mayor Leasing. From that time, I personally can't recall they coming only on special occasion. Okay, we as an organization, when we had a relationship under my watch as president, we were told that we need to pay a sum of money that they can come to us, all right, because our activities is in the evening time. So that is where it is.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Dillon, you and your members, you operate in a part of the country where there's always been issues relating to vending, particularly Main Road, Chaguanas, vending within the municipal market, on Eleanor Street, behind the market, and as you go up to Montrose, the representatives from Conopia, they're here, so we see up the southern Main Road, in the area by Medford gas station, we see the upsurge in vending. This bill proposes some changes, but we've invited you specifically to tell us what your membership would like to see in terms of an improved relationship with the borough of Chaguanas, and in particular, the same question I asked Mr. Faustin relating to food badges, other permits, and other things that would make you as an association more effective for your membership?
Good day, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I have a few issues from the vendors of the borough pertaining to the market and the surrounding areas.
Let me just clarify. Your membership vend
Market
all
Vendors
over
Association.
Chaguanas?
No, just the Market Vendors Association.
The market vendors.
That's
okay,
right. So we have a structure there, which is the market, and yet it is not properly manned. We don't have proper administration, security. There are great issues with security right now. Robberies are taking place. There are bandits plaguing the vendors and the customers. They could run in and out as they please. We need to see a greater presence of police patrol within the market. Not only that, we had security at one point and it was taken away. They said it was an issue of funding. There is problems with sexual activities within the market because of lack of proper fostering of proper attendance to the building itself and the surroundings. We have problems with gambling. There are people coming into the market and gambling, which invites the criminal elements to enter the market. Criminal elements in the sense of drug pushers, users.
Ms. Dillon,
yes.
In order to vend in the Chaguanas market, you need to pay a fee.
Supposed to.
Can you tell us how many vendors your association represents?
At this point, we represent about 320 people.
Right. Are your members paying this fee to the corporation?
No, we have an issue with that due to the fact that sales within the market has dropped drastically.
What is the fee?
The fee per month is according to the allotted space.
Right.
If it's for vegetation, it's $150 per month.
Mm-hmm.
Fish and meats, $250. Clothing and haberdashery, $200.
Right. So you think that your members, some of your members have not been paying
Yes,
the fee, right?
I will even say even myself.
Right. And the gambling, does it involve market vendors?
Some of them, yes.
Some of them.
Some majority are outsiders.
Right. Is there any other issue, in summary, management of the market, security, collection of fees, those things, the things that you've raised? Are there any other things?
Well, we have, as I was saying, the dysfunctional administration. We had issues where vendors would go and pay for their stalls and their booths and then given letters that these sums were not collected. We have problems, a lot of problems arising out of collections of fees and mishandling of funds. We even have problems with when people voice their opinion due to the fact that they are owing, they are victimized and not given a proper opportunity to clear their arrears and the stores are taken away. Now, the market is the structure. The main road is not the market. And if persons are allowed to vend on the street, that takes away from the sale within the market. At any given day, I invite any of you all to come to Chaguanas Market and watch the kind of sales
Ms.
that
Dillon,
comes in.
you're talking about vending on Chaguanas Main Road, Eleanor Street.
Chaguanas Main Road and Eleanor Street only.
Right, yeah, Mark Street. So you estimate how many vendors are operating on those streets?
Too far to count.
200?
more than the amount in the market.
More, right,
That's right.
that is what we're trying to establish.
They could
right.
say double the amount in the market
Right.
is on the streets.
The Minister of Local Government is here and he's taking note. I want to thank you.
Yes.
You'll come back, the members will come back to you. And we have the Charlotte Street vendors being represented today. Mr. Billy? Okay. Member Rambachan has a clarification.
Yes. Yes. Yes, we do. Still problems.
So you're saying that there's poor administration?
Right now, I have at least 7 persons who had contradicting receipts to what was written in the logs of the administration, and their stores were still taken away.
Okay. So this might involve an inquiry into the people who are collecting the money, right?
That is right.
Right. Secondly, just one question. Do you represent the vendors upstairs, including the food vendors?
No, I don't.
Have you been upstairs there recently?
Yes,
every day. Are you satisfied with the hygienic conditions under which food is sold upstairs?
At all, not at all.
Are people still paid there to man the toilets?
Yes, they are paid. They are paid workers.
To man them, right?
Yes.
Are those people on the job?
Yes, they are.
Why is it that you think that the police has not been active in dealing with the number of vendors who come and sell at the front of the market and block up the market way and therefore affect the sales of the vendors inside who are paying money?
Well, I've been to several police inactive meetings, and what they keep on complaining about is lack of resources.
Which police is that? The municipal?
Chaguanas police.
The actual Chaguanas police?
Yes.
Right
now, the municipal policing, all they keep on telling us is that there's no proper structure with them and there's lack of workers as the same thing with the police.
Well, Mr. Brian Headley is here and he's probably taking note of that. So you're saying that you're not getting a response from the Chaguanas police, nor the municipal
That is
police?
right. It's not consistent.
Okay, Member Simonat?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I have 2 questions. Two bodies of questions. The first is related to what was just revealed, and it's directed to Mr. Brian Headley. Mr. Headley, what are the challenges you see at the moment in the current structure for the municipal police and deploying adequate policing as Ms. Dillon was just indicating, for ensuring that the laws are obeyed in the municipality? And yes, if you could just answer that question. I have a follow-on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. And to answer the question, one of the main challenges is resources, human resource. At the Chaguanas Municipal Police, presently we have a small strength of about 10 officers. And why 10? Within recent times, they had additional human resource from the Special Reserve Police. We have been recruiting for the last year and a half. As a result of that recruitment, the Commissioner of Police asked that the Special Reserve Police who were attached to the corporation return to the TDPS. The reason being is that at the initial time, it was that because of the shortage of the different corporations, a request was made for Special Reserve officers to augment the strength of the different corporations. And as we are recruiting, while the numbers may look large, we had a passing out earlier this year of 200 officers. And presently we have an additional 200 officers training. While the numbers may look large, it is 14 corporations in which they have to be distributed. So because of that, I think the commissioner felt that, okay, when you were short, we lent you, so now you are getting officers, time for them to return. So they were returned, so which leaves us back to square one, if I may. And it is difficult for the small team to man the market and the other functions of the corporation on a 24/7 basis. So they operated small teams in the most feasible time where the market is busy and where it should go on there's much activity. In addition to, there's the lack of resources as it relates to the tools to do the job. There were, especially in particular Shogunas, there were some issues as it relates to getting equipment, and talking about basic equipment like the uniform and vehicles, etc., etc. At this time, the Shogunas municipal police do not have a marked police vehicle in order to do their duties, and some of the officers do not have uniforms. So it is a complexity of problems.
And could I direct this question to Mr. Anthony Roberts? The fundamental change financially in this legislation is that the municipal corporation is going to be entitled to manage its money, to collect taxes. And I hasten to add that the bringing on of the property tax, I want to suggest, will have a dramatic effect on the very R word, resources. And is it, Mr. Roberts, that you can see that with the change in the financing of municipal corporations, that resources can be identified to improve the municipal police? Would you care to comment on that, please?
The answer undoubtedly is yes. So we look forward to it. We're supporting the initiative. It was in the legislation some time ago that the municipalities were supposed to collect taxes, and it was removed. So we really look forward to the collection of taxes. I know that government at this time is putting its house in order, and at some point in time will hand it over to the municipalities, and we look forward to it. It will involve additional staffing, trained personnel to be able to do it, and I guess at that time we will have to look into hiring the appropriate persons to deal with it.
Just to expand that point a bit, Chairman Roberts, with regard to the type of personnel, I think the bill has tried to establish a certain structure. Can I ask whether, I know your corporation had started putting things in place in preparation for this reform. Can I ask what is the status of that and what effect you think that would have, and whether other corporations should in fact be moving in that direction?
Yes, we started looking at, from the time we got the policy on local government, we started looking at certain aspects of it. The issue of the collection of taxes is not one of the areas. While we've been talking about it, we have not sought to look at the hiring of staff for it. We have an idea as to the kind of staff we would require, but there are a number of other areas because we believe that we could have gone ahead without legislation. Yeah, the current legislation provides for certain changes, and so we sort of ahead of the other corporation in that regard.
Assistant Commissioner, you mentioned about lack of resources. The Municipal Police Division, their budgetary allocations presently are provided from whom?
Let me say, presently it is provided by the corporations. However, I made a recommendation for next fiscal year that the ministry, because of the challenges that we are having in different corporations, that the ministry provide for all the 14 municipal police corporations.
At present, if you need a vehicle or you need uniforms, it comes through the corporation.
Correct.
Member Hussain.
Mr. Chairman. Assistant Commissioner, how many police officers the municipal police have on total? Not with the first batch that came out this year. How many before? Okay, how about
not with the present battle training.
No, not
presently. We have altogether 644 officers.
Right. So initially you had 454.
Yes, correct.
And when the government came into office, we decided we're giving 100 police officers to each corporation except Port of Spain, which will have 200. Okay. The second batch going to pass out this year, which is 200 and something. You said Shogunas had 14 officers. How many Penal has?
Penal right now would have somewhere in the vicinity of about 18.
18. How much Point Fortin have?
Point Fortin would have 60.
60?
They about.
60?
60.
Okay. 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 So, Mr. Assistant Commissioner, the reason why I get into this, letters have been written to me where an officer live in San Fernando and working in Point Fortin and have senior position, and an officer living in Point Fortin working in San Fernando. Now, we're talking local government reform, so you must have the officers know the community. What do you all intend to do concerning that with this reform, the officers are placed within their community? Because the one who live in Point and live in San Fernando, if you ask him certain streets in San Fernando, he would know it, and likewise the one working in Point. So what do you intend to do to ensure that these officers be assigned to the community? Because the municipal police officers has really been intended now for community policing. That's the vision of the government.
If you may permit me first to clear up something. We have the municipal police under two entities, under the Public Service Commission and under the Statutory Authority Service Commission. Then we have 200 trainees. It's 100 from the Public Service Commission, which comprises of 10 corporations, and under the Statutory Authority Service Commission is 4. So when we divide, the greater number will go to those under the statutory, while under the 10, you may just get 8 to 10 officers. Just want to clear up that. As it relates to your question, I don't know what, in terms of who would have, the persons who may have written you or informed you of the difference in where they live and their posting. Within recent times, you had promotions. And because of the promotions, we had to balance the ranks for the purpose of supervision.
Mr.
So
Commissioner, I understand all of that, but I want to know what you as the head of the municipal police could assist.
Well, as much as possible, we try to balance the persons as much as possible to accommodate them in areas as close as possible to where they live. There are times where it may not be possible, but what we also do as police officers, it's possible that we can rotate the officers from municipality to municipality. It helps in that sometimes when you are assigned to a particular area, it gives you an opportunity to learn the area. It will take some time. Okay? And if it is that you are diligently patrolling, eventually you get to know the different areas and the different streets. But we are in the process. We would, of course, try as much as possible to accommodate those who live in the areas that they are assigned, and those who don't, we try as much as possible to ensure that they get to know the
Mr. Commissioner, I would
jurisdiction.
Assistant Commissioner, I would like you to make a special effort to ensure, because this is community policing. When you grow up in an area, you'll know the pastor, you'll know the priest, you'll know the school children, you'll know the vendors. When you come from Point and you have to work in Port of Spain, you don't have that same effect. So I'd like you to make a special effort. Now, with the reform, it will happen. So I'd like you to make a special effort to ensure that it is done.
Very well, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, Assistant Commissioner. Yes, the local reform bill is presently before Parliament, but there are certain aspects, right, of this bill that we don't need to wait on legislation, right? We can act now, okay? If my records are correct, 663 officers we have at present. We have 14 municipalities. That makes 47 per municipality. I heard you just mention that Point 14 have 60. How much Tunapuna Piaco Regional Corporation have, which is one of the largest corporations? How much does Port of Spain City Corporation has? Could you give those figures right now? Because if you're saying that it only have 11 in Shogunas, you know, so who have the bulk of these municipal police officers? Shed some light, please.
The cities and the boroughs. The cities and the boroughs, from inception, were the first municipal police corporation that were established. Arising out of the boroughs and cities, they expanded the municipalities, and police officers from those 4 corporations were transferred out to the different corporations. Right? So hence the reason why the strength is so small. Right?
Figures we're talking about. Port of Spain has,
Port of Spain may have maybe 100 and maybe 10, 15 officers.
All right, simple question. The first lien on responsibility for the municipal police will be the aspects of the municipal corporation. Am I correct?
Yes.
Right? But a police officer is a police officer, which means that if he sees any discrimination, anything taking place, he needs to act.
Correct.
All right? In terms of comparison, I may not have it off the top of my head, in terms of what aspects of the Port of Spain Corporation are that falls on the responsibility of the city versus what we may have in Tunapuna. Like, for instance, in Tunapuna Piaco, we have the market, we have Ozenville Park, we have the slaughterhouse, you know, things like those, which are their main responsibilities. Port of Spain, I don't know if Roberts.
In a municipality where we have a high potential for crime. We have approximately 10. The commissioner was right. He says that the commissioner of police recalled them. I don't think the discussions that were supposed to be held with the commissioner really took place, because we decided that we're going to approach the commissioner on that issue. And he agreed with us to return the 11 he took from us. We spoke recently, and I think he is taking the necessary steps to have them returned, because we are under extreme pressure in Zawan Laventil for police support.
Thank you. I would say, Mr. Commissioner, again, from your office, see how we can, you know, equate, you know, some sort of thing, because, you know, I mean, there's need for some assistance in some of those corporations.
Thank you very much. Just to close off on this issue of the municipal police, I've invited PS Bascom from the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government. I think it would be best dealt with in a written submission, PS Bascom. If you can indicate to the committee the current strength of the municipal police, the requirement in each municipality. I don't know if each municipality has an establishment or has done any work to determine what is the manpower requirement.
But, you know, my hand was up for a long time because I wanted to direct a question to Mr. Headley. It's very important. You are graduating 200 officers and another 200 officers. And while you are doing this, have you been setting a budget with the Ministry of Finance or local government to ensure that these people, when they go out, they will have the requisite uniforms and have the requisite tools and equipment? What is your responsibility beyond training them in order to ensure that you liaise with both Ministry of Finance and Ministry of Local Government, so you don't have a situation like you just described, where officers don't have vehicles, where officers don't have uniforms? And are you policing this in any way at all? Because it seems to me a lack of foresight and a lack of basic planning, that you're responsible for the municipal police, you're training them, but then train them to do what if they don't have uniforms?
Okay, Member Ramachan, that was my third item, because I think if you get a written submission, we can interrogate it a little more. So the current manpower, and members could add to this list, which we're requesting in written form, the requirement for each municipality, so that you may have an establishment, or each municipality, or some may have done a document which says this is our requirement. Thirdly, the current allocation, the number of officers allocated per municipality. Next area is the resources available. And then the last area, which I consider to be very important, and that is this issue which has been raised, that some of the officers coming out are under the SASC and some are under the Public Service Commission. And we heard that 100 came out, they're under the SASC, and 10 corporations benefited from that. But then the other 100 that came out are under the Public Service Commission, which is to be divided among 4 municipalities. And P.S., I just would like in the written submission, if you could address that matter, but also address how that matter could be resolved going forward, so we are not constrained to allocate based on SASC and specific corporation and PSC and specific municipality.
Chairman, I'd like one other thing, that written submission for Mr. Headley to present to this committee his evaluation in writing of what is required in terms of actual resources. If it's 10 guns, if it's 50 uniforms, if it's 3 police vehicles, exactly what is required. Because it seems to me that you cannot be in charge of a municipal police, you cannot be, and not do a study like this in order to make it effective. I think it's a dereliction of duty to have a situation where you have somebody in charge, but they they don't have any connection with the resources taking place. I would like to ask Mr. Headley through you, why is it that the municipal police in Chaguanas do not want to work in the market? Why is it that they are refusing? When last have you visited on the ground and tried to speak to the corporation or try to speak to the police officers that they have this resistance to working in the market, for example, so that what the young lady described as existing there in terms of drugs and so on and so forth is a free-for-all, because the municipal police, I'm told, by the mayor, are refusing to work in the market? Why is it?
Okay, Member Robinson-Regis.
Colleague, if you could just take off your thanks. I just wanted to add to that list, Mr. Chairman, to whom is the municipal police responsible? Because sometimes you hear it's the commissioner, sometimes you hear otherwise. So I would like to know specifically to whom is the municipal police responsible, from whom do they take direction, so that we can have a clear understanding of that.
Right. We've explored the municipal police, and
Mr. Chairman,
I anticipated that we'd have a very lively discussion on it. But alongside the municipal police, we have the traffic wardens, and I want to invite P.S. Francis Yearwood, and you have with you the director. You have a very strong team this morning. the Director of Highways and the Chief Traffic Warden. And among the three of you, you could address the issue of the traffic wardens. We've had some contribution from DOMA on the issue of parking and so on. And we just want to know how the system works right now in terms of allocation. Any plans to increase, and what has been the experience so far in using the traffic wardens, particularly in the municipalities?
Add to what you asked, Mr. Chairman. I understand that there's an RFP out for parking meters. Could I add to what the chairman said and ask how you anticipate that will assist the situation with traffic, with parking and so on, if you can address your mind to that also?
Yes. Good day again, members. Thank you for allowing us to contribute to the discussion thus far. In terms of the issues of the traffic wardens and their operation within the different municipalities and their operations as a whole, the traffic warden system is one that has been conceptualized for quite a while. Since 1993, I believe, the process of seeking to develop a traffic warden system was initiated, and we started in 2011, yes. Since then, we ran a pilot project and subsequently went back to Cabinet for an expansion of the system. And now the system is run in 4 major districts. I think it's northeast, northwest. Oh, 4 regions, I'm told to make sure. Northeast, northwest, central, and south? Southwest. Southwest, yes. We operate 11 districts, and the Chief Traffic Warden will give you a detailed understanding on how it works in these districts. We have approval for a little over 649 positions. Over time, we have employed 433 individuals, and at this present time, our strength is at 143. We are in the process of recruitment. We are recruiting 100 at this time, and there's intention to recruit 200 more. We base our numbers in terms of recruitment on the ability to train and to accommodate. So I will allow the Chief Traffic Warden to give you a detailed understanding in terms of how it's working in the different regions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Let me start by saying, it was said by PS, the Traffic Warden Division was conceptualized sometime in 1993, and it came to being on the 21st of March 2011. The Traffic Warden Division is a creature of the Minister of National Security and the Minister of Transport. By 2010, the law that put traffic warden into being comes under Section 10A of the Motor Vehicle and Road Traffic Act 4850. And also the interpretation section, I think is 1 or 2 of the Administration and Enforcement Act, which is locally known as the ticket system. It was carefully and wisely done, prudently done, under 4850 10A, not to recognize traffic wardens as police officers, maybe for obvious reasons.
So,
police officers, traffic wardens.
Mr. Putin, so you have 143 now, right?
Yes.
And then there are plans to add 200 and another 100.
Yes, as soon
And
as they can.
so they do not have police powers.
Powers of arrest.
Powers of arrest.
Yeah.
But what authority, and these 143 are deployed across the country?
Yes, they are destroyed, they are deployed at 11 locations, operating out of nine accommodations.
Okay, so what are these 11 locations?
The 11 locations, permit me to break them down into as the expansion, our second term, 1787. That's the cabinet note that agreed with the expansion.
The 143 are in 11 locations.
Yes.
So let us start.
Okay.
Port of Spain.
Port of Spain, San Juan Barataria, count that as one. Tanapuna, if you want the locations where they are, I may tell you that.
Just the areas.
Arima, Chaguanas, Gasparilla, San Fernando,
yeah,
Princess Town, Pinal, and Point Forte.
Right. So I don't hear Sangre Grande. In fact,
No.
the eastern seaboard is not covered by traffic. You don't have traffic?
Presently, we do some work in Valencia. Right. Those people come out of Arima to do the work in Valencia.
So you're not in Sangre Grande, which is a heavy traffic area?
That's one of the areas that is catered for in the 28 or 29, let me call it 29 districts. We originally were to operate.
So you don't have them in Rio Claro?
Neither. If we go to Rio Claro, or we used to go to Rio Claro, when we were all assembled at one point in time at San Fernando, and we would do mobile patrols, or if there's an event that wants our attention,
who do these traffic wardens,
takes us as
who do they report to?
Whom? The traffic warden division?
No, the warden. So we have a traffic warden right now somewhere in Gasparilla.
Okay.
Who is that person reporting to?
Our structure is like this. We have 7 positions. All right? If I come from the bottom, the lowest level, there's a traffic warden 1,
right?
Traffic warden 2, traffic warden 3, traffic warden supervisor, assistant chief traffic warden, deputy chief traffic warden, and chief traffic warden. However, as we speak now, none of the positions as traffic warden supervisor is filled.
Right. So
the traffic warden, a deputy chief traffic warden, also same thing.
Right. So where do they get in terms of deployment? Who determines where they're going to be deployed?
In the districts, you mean?
In the district.
At the district?
Yeah.
The traffic warden 3 at this time.
Right. Is there any relationship between the traffic wardens and the municipal corporations?
Yes, we do. We attend municipal, borough, and city meetings.
Not the meetings, the actual work. Traffic wardens.
You're talking about the police?
Traffic wardens.
And?
A traffic warden in... Mr. Roberts is a chairman of a corporation. You have traffic wardens operating in Sawa. Is there do the traffic wardens in Sawa talk to anybody in the municipal corporation, Sawa Laventil Corporation,
we
on a
attend
daily
the
basis?
meetings?
No, we're not dealing with meetings at all. These people, do they speak on a daily, weekly, regular basis? Do the traffic wardens talk to the municipal police officers? Do the traffic wardens talk to the police officers based at Sawa? Yeah, that is a yes or no?
Yes, we do.
Right. So what do they talk about and how is it managed?
There's collaboration as to find out who will occupy which area, instead of we having the 2 units or at any one point, that one doesn't know what each other is doing. So we collaborate to find out who will go where and who will go where. And there's a liaison, a constant liaison between the police, the municipal police, albeit they have just arrived, and the traffic wardens.
So you have traffic wardens in San Fernando?
Yes, we do.
Right. So this is an opportunity to invite Mr. Kiran Singh from San Fernando. and then our colleagues from Cunupia to talk about, in particular, municipal police and traffic wardens and how they function in your business district, and in relation to the bill, what specific comments or contributions you want to make on the bill before us. San Fernando first, and then we would go to Cunupia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning to the committee. And before I start, I just want to thank the committee for inviting San Fernando to air its views on this bill. We think it's long overdue, as successive governments have been speaking about local government reform, but we have not seen much being done over several years. And we are very happy to see the advanced stage in where this discussion has reached. We believe from San Fernando that local government reform is extremely important to the progress of this country as we move forward with our daily responsibilities. First of all, with respect to the municipal police, we noticed that we received several new officers some time ago. But what we noticed is that the point was made earlier, is that these officers came from regions outside of the South area, and they're not familiar with the streets, with the business people, with the vendors, and it has caused some sort of immediate problems in that they disrupt the business people in the daily routines of having to do their daily business. Parking, which leads me to the other point of the parking, which is a perennial problem in San Fernando, and as my counterpart in Port of Spain would have been speaking about. The officers are not aware, or were not made aware, and we hope that they will be made aware of who they should target with respect to where vehicles pull up to conduct business, as opposed to wanting to ticket them or call the very efficient record service that we have in San Fernando. Without economic activity, a city cannot flourish. The citizens cannot prosper. The business community needs to be recognized in its contribution towards the city corporation and, by extension, the country. And what we notice with that, the traffic wardens, moving on to the traffic wardens, is that we don't notice them on a regular. There are some days that we don't see them. This may sound funny, but when there's some rainfall, we don't know where the traffic wardens go, or if they arrive to work on that day. And the business community is not made aware of what areas the traffic wardens are supposed to be governing, for want of a better word right now. And sometimes it's a mystery. Sometimes you see one traffic warden, sometimes you see 10 congregating an area, and we wonder what is their real purpose. I mean, yes, the sun is hot. They sometimes need to get some shelter and so on, but if they come to do a duty, we expect that the traffic wardens would be more vociferous in managing the traffic flow. Our roads cannot be widened. The city corporation has opened up several of the roads in and out of the downtown area, which has facilitated an easier traffic flow. But we need the municipal police and the traffic wardens to work hand in hand to ensure that the traffic flows more smoothly. What we noticed within recent times, the city corporation started repainting the lines to demarcate the no parking zones, no stopping areas around the corners, and not to stop across a traffic light intersection, which we welcome because indiscriminate parking leads to chaotic traffic. So we hope that the traffic wardens will take note of these things and enforce the law for errant drivers, because that reduces business activity. Because when we talk about consumers coming into the downtown area of San Fernando to shop. The perennial question is, where are we going to park? What about the traffic? What about the wrecker? I will get a ticket. And these things deter consumers from coming into the downtown city area to shop. And what the proliferation of the mega shopping centers on the suburban areas of San Fernando has led to activity being spread out of San Fernando and into these shopping centers. And while we support and appreciative of the investment that is being created in the southern area, we also have to be mindful that the downtown area cannot be neglected. Business people, San Fernando started in the downtown area. And if we are not mindful of that, people who have investments of huge magnitudes stand to lose. And we also support the workers, because without businesses, then workers would have to be laid off. And then there's a downward trend of lower economic activity, which then leads to more criminal activity, because youths in particular would turn to a life of crime. And this has a debilitating effect on the society as a whole. So we would want to see from San Fernando that more cohesive and collaborative effect from these two arms of the services for us in San Fernando.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Ali from Conopia Chamber of Commerce.
Mr. Chairman, committee members, to get to your question quickly with the traffic wardens, Conopia doesn't have any traffic wardens, but Shogunas, the environment to Conopia does. I have seen a lot of traffic wardens in Shogunas. The presence, it has eliminated some of the traffic already in Shogunas. When I attend to business in Shogunas, the municipal police, I'm not a part of that borough, but I don't know the amount. But from a business standpoint, though, we recommend this bill with the intention that when the local government has the finances, which they would have more bigger budget, we hope that intentions in the community of Shogunas, Conopia, Felicity, so on, would be more like local people being involved in contracts and stimulating the local economy of that. So we look forward for that. And we think that that is a good option, that, having the...
Right, Mr. Ali, so your chamber deals with Conopia and what other areas?
Well, any environs, but Enterprise,
Conopia,
Shogunas,
Enterprise,
Montrose.
You said Felicity?
Well, we don't. Felicity has their own chamber, but
right.
it's within
Monroe.
within
Monroe
Shogunas,
Road.
within Shogunas, yeah.
Right. There was some discussion earlier, I believe it is Member Simonet, on this issue of property tax and the collection and the potential benefit from that. Have you discussed that in your chamber?
We have, but obviously it's something, well, they've said they've been discussing it for 3 years, right? But it's now back into the limelight, obviously. So, I mean, they need more elaboration, but we believe the intention is a good intention and it will stimulate the growth, especially for our community. I mean, I can't speak for, we're not a town, right? We're not a city. But business has been growing in Conopia at a, let's say, a steady rate. So, so while cities may decline, places like Conopia have a little inclines, Right. And we see the movement of this bill with, as I said, to stimulate the growth of local economies, being that the councillors, the mayors, the people who would be in charge of the finances, I read that the Minister of Finance will still be in charge, right? But we hope the direction goes to the people involved in the community in terms of getting whatever contracts or whatever it is. We just hope that the local people benefit from it.
Right, and one other point. Conopia has developed significantly. In fact, along that southern main road, there's been significant development. More than 50% of the properties along the southern main road are commercial properties. And on Monroe Road, even though we have long-term land tenure issues that we're trying to resolve, but maybe, again, more than 50% of the the ribbon on Monroe Road is commercial development. This bill proposes the planning and development, facilitation of development legislation puts the development, the permitting in the hands of the municipal bodies. And this bill introduces some of the technical and staffing resources to help that happen. Is that something, at your meetings, have you been discussing this issue of planning and the permitting required through Town and Country Planning Division? And do you see giving the Chaguanas Borough Corporation a greater involvement? Do you see that helping your members?
I do.
Right. Your membership are drawn from Chaguanas Borough Corporation boundaries alone, or?
No, we have people open from outside the outskirts, and even from different areas, further areas.
Okay.
But the emphasis obviously is in Fukunapea.
Right. Thank you very much. I want to invite Mr. Charan from Felicity Business Association, Felicity Business Development Association. And along the same lines, Mr. Charan, how does this bill improve in relation to what your members have been talking about at the meetings, planning issues, permitting issues, the growth, and relationship with the corporation? How does this bill affect you?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing us to address this meeting. The Felicity Business Development Association just commenced operation about 3 years ago, and we work hand in hand with the borough in terms of development. With respect to traffic wardens, we have them at the schools, but there is indiscriminate parking in the Kakandi Road area, and we would like to see some more involvement with the traffic wardens. At the same time, we also would like to have the police presence doing some more patrols, because crime in the area is increasing slowly. With respect to taxes, most of the areas are farmers and 1 or 2 businesses, and they are concerned about when these taxes would take effect. As it is, they are anxious to sort of have their budget balanced so that they could cater for the taxes, and they are looking forward for the introduction of the taxes. Although it would be a burden on them, we all know that we have to pay taxes.
Thank you very much. As we
Chairman,
get to the, thank you, Mr. Simonet. Before we move on, Mr. Simonet, followed by my colleague, Minister Garcia.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just go back to an issue that concerns the municipal police, and the question is directed to Assistant Commissioner Headley. Mr. Headley, are the municipal police engaged on terms and conditions less advantageous than their colleagues at the TTPS?
Yes, sir.
The answer is yes?
Yes.
And could I ask if you would care in your written submission to put proposals on how you see that being treated with?
Correct.
And a follow-on question, obviously, I think it's a rhetorical one. Would that issue be responsible for motivation and the like?
It would help in motivating, yes.
Member Garcia.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I want to go back to the system of traffic wardens. This system has been in operation for 8 years now. My first question is, has there been a comprehensive evaluation so far of the system in terms of how it operates? That's the first question I want to ask. The second question I want to ask, I'll ask the questions one time, so you'll have an opportunity to answer one time. What are the levels of training of these traffic wardens? And the third question, what are the contractual arrangements? Particularly you, Mr. Putin, are you on contract or are you a permanently employed officer?
Let me start with the first question. Can I? Right. And the first question is if there was an evaluation done. That was done last year by the PMC Ministry of Public Administration. And I'm of the view that gave rise to the replenishing of the positions that were exhausted, where a new cabinet noted that is 1850 of October 2018, because we were losing people, and we believe that it's joked around the corridors of the Traffic Warden Division that our success is our best enemy, or greatest enemy. What we found is that we have so far recruited 433 people. However, in the shortest of time, we are now down to 143 operatives. And this has been happening continuously. What has happened?
Because another member raised the issue, is this true attrition?
Not attrition, with migration. The municipal police benefited from us tremendously.
Okay, so I believe PS would said there, at one time there were 443 wardens.
33.
433. Is the establishment 649?
Yes.
Right. So you have no issue with the establishment.
No.
The establishment is 649, but what you're facing is movement in
the sustenance of traffic wardens. Right. We believe we train them up to a point, and they're an easy target, or the other agencies easier target for them. So we joke, we say that's our success.
So Chairman, could I interject here? The reason for my question in terms of the evaluation of this system wasn't to find out numbers. I wanted to find out whether you have found the system to be effective, and how effective, and if there were any gaps, what were the gaps and what measures have been taken to bridge those gaps. It was in that context that I asked that question.
Well, that's where I was going. It's because we were found to be satisfying what the law intended us to do. And the law says, Section 10A of the MVNRT Act says, in essence, to assist the police in the control and regulation of road traffic and with the enforcement of law. And we, having come on the ground in 2011, in the shortest a while, there was, because of the demand/request for traffic wardens by agencies, groups, NGOs, Taxi Drivers Association, and other ministries, we had to we sought an expansion. We sought an expansion, and we got an expansion in the Cabinet Note 1787, and recruited two more batches of 103, the first batch, that was the 2/12/2013, and 85 by the 2/9/2014. And that is how we were until as time came, the 3 years were over, people will either go into other agencies or contracts could not be renewed.
All right, member, Mr. Proter. You have an excellent memory. You have an excellent recall of cabinet notes and legislation.
Well, I live that.
Let me ask Member Timal to come in at this point.
Yes, Ms. Yawood and Mr. Ramsingh, in terms of the proposed
the legislation itself, and particularly with the Ministry of Works and Highways Division. In terms of traffic congestion within between the localized areas, and also infrastructure, mainly flooding, things like that. In terms of the level of collaboration or joint meetings with the corporations, do we have those in place in terms of, for instance, where the ministry may be responsible for major water courses that serves as the outfall for the local drains within areas, those sort of drainage concerns, and particularly traffic as well, where we have the minor roads exiting onto major roadways and those intersections. And, do we have that mechanism set up for regular collaboration and regular meetings with the local corporations regarding these issues?
Thank you, Member. The collaboration is undertaken in a number of ways. We do attend the corporation meetings. We have, in the recent past, we have actually started to look at how we attend these meetings, because we note that in times past there has been complaints in terms of our level of attendance and how we respond. So we are seeking to put more robust mechanisms in place to make sure that, one, we attend, and we attend across the board. If we can't attend across the board, meaning one person for each section, so one for drainage, one for highways, one, at least we try to ensure that the person who attends would be able to, if not address the issue at the point in time, identify what it is and take it back and seek to get some response on it. We do have mechanisms in terms of an emergency level. We are on different committees that seek to, if there is a national emergency, we are on the ODPM committees that require the collaboration. We do have collaboration at the engineer professional level across the board. The engineers within the highways division, within the drainage division, do collaborate on a regular basis with the engineers in the corporations. We try to get have that level of collaboration as well. We do note as well in terms of drainage that the bill that is being addressed does seek to directly clarify what is the responsibility of the corporation, and I imagine by that clearly identifying what is the responsibility of the Ministry of Works and Transport. So we have identified that is in the bill, and we think it is a good step.
Member Amachan?
Just one question. I think it's important for how we look forward. Is there a view that is reasonable and the ministry might want to recommend it, or what's your view, that all roads in Trinidad and Tobago, as well as all drainage, should be responsibility of one agency, the Ministry of Works and Drainage, rather than have some under the corporation and some under this agency? That just the ministry should be responsible for all roads and drainage. Is there a view in the ministry about this?
So you see, Member, I very carefully go to push the button on this one, because then that would lead to a wider thinking in terms of the ministries. I believe that local government, the local government aspect of it is a critical component in terms of being able to get from the community the ability to respond immediately and the ability to identify what is critical at the point in time. So I would think that is something that would have to go not just in terms of a view, but that's a wider discussion on the merging of ministries and the merging of responsibilities and wider portfolios.
The reason I ask it is there's always this conflict that arises, who is responsible for a drain and who is responsible for a road. And the citizen suffers in the end, because Sometimes that goes on for weeks, sometimes months, and nobody wants to take responsibility. And you know, I am developing a view that maybe what we really need to do is to be dramatic about this and have one agency in charge of all drains and all roads in the country to avoid this kind of thing. And maybe, because there's another issue involved, it seems that the corporations never have the equipment, and now, even worse, they don't even have the manpower to do the maintenance and cleaning of these drains. So it's something that, you know, I'm throwing out because I think it's very active in my own mind as to what is required.
Thank you, member. And that would require a major policy decision, as you know. I want to invite from San Fernando, Ms. Simon, who represents the Clothing Vendors Association. Ms. Simon, do your members operate in a particular part of San Fernando? Short Street, High Street, down at the bottom of High Street? Where do your membership come from? Where does your membership come from?
Okay, I want to say thank you, Mr. Chairman, for inviting us this morning.
You may need to turn on your microphone.
Turn it on. Okay. Thank you very much for inviting us this morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. We are an entity that we do our servicing on San Fernando High Street, really, High Street, San Fernando. And we have letters and proposals sent to Mr. Rigello, proposing 4 days be given Monday, Tuesdays, Friday and Saturdays with 2 cut space to be used. We are suggesting a cost of $40 per day. We are also, we have a proposal asking him that the money is being paid by the vendors to the city corp would be used as an investment, so a space of building be provided for us to become legalized entrepreneurs. We also have this letter telling him, suggesting that the education process, because we were told that by Mr. Rigello and previous mayors that we are not legalized entrepreneurs. We were told also that we do not pay taxes. And we are asking the mayor of San Fernando, Mr. Rigello, that, okay, every Christmas, right, they come up with a fee of $500 per month, every Christmas. We have 100 and something vendors on High Street for the Christmas season, and everybody has to pay $500. So if you multiply $500 by 100 and something vendors, how much money do you get? And we do not see anything coming out of that. We are presently being harassed by the police because the mayor told us that he has 25 new officers coming out and he's going to make sure everybody gets locked up. He presently, one of our members her goods was taken to court. She was charged, and her goods was given to the homes. That is not right. Right? We are in a desperate position right now, and we are asking that the mayor of San Fernando, even Mr. Kazim Hussein, do something about this.
Okay, Ms. Simon, you said do you have those letters with you?
Yes, I do.
Right, so the secretariat would meet you when we finish and get copies of the letters so that the members could read it, and also when the San Fernando City Corporation appears before the committee, members, if they so desire, will ask some questions based on your letters. Okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And we have Mr. Billy, Kester Billy, from the Charlotte Street Vendors. And your official name is Central Business Revitalization Initiative. And we know that vending on Charlotte Street has been an issue. It has been an issue that you've been addressing along with the mayor. But we want to focus on the bill itself and whether your members have discussed the bill and this local government reform, and also in relation to what we've heard today on municipal policing and traffic wardens, whether you have any contribution to make on those things.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Members of the panel, relative to the reform bill, it has not been discussed with the members of the Charlotte Street because this was recently given to us. But the management team do keep a monthly meeting with the vendors, and we have not yet had that the meeting that will be forthcoming. So that would be addressed in the forthcoming meeting. Relative to the traffic wardens in Port of Spain, yes, we do see traffic wardens in Port of Spain, mostly on Independence Square North, but certainly not on the Charlotte Street between the vending areas. We seldom see them there, but they are in the vicinity of Charlotte Street, that is on Independence Square North, and doing their duties, pulling traffic and so on. I think that they are an integral part of assisting the police officers in alleviating traffic in and around Port of Spain.
So Billy, so your association would have the opportunity to submit in writing when you meet and you discuss based on what this committee will continue to sit, maybe based on what you hear on the radio or see on the television or read in the newspapers, and you are free to make a written submission to us, and all the entities are free to make written submissions to the committee. I want to invite Mr.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Mr. Aboud to make a very short intervention as we seek to close.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chairman, and to all the rest of the attendees who have devoted their time to today, and also to you on the JSC. I thought that we would devote a little bit more time to discussing the philosophy of the reform itself than just the nitty-gritty, but as it turns out, the nitty-gritty will inform that overall policy. With respect specifically to the questions that were asked about municipal policing, and Mr. Rambachan's surprising question about the roads, I thought that the spirit of the reform was to put more control in the hands of the local authority and to put more control in the hands of the municipal corporations as it used to be when we had county councils and the like. So the corporations and councils should be responsible, in my humble opinion, for the maintenance of their roads and drains and for the cleaning of the drains as it relates to mosquitoes and so on. And people from faraway places are calling on the Ministry of Works to respond and so on. It shouldn't be a confusion, but it is a confusion for matters related to resources and otherwise. The question of decentralization should be at the heart of the municipal policing, if I could respectfully submit to you that there is huge confusion between the responsibilities and rights of the various officers, and it is not uncommon for us to call the CID and for them to ask why we didn't call the city police. Not uncommon at all, and actually for them to complain to us about that. I believe in my submission to you that it is very wholesome and productive to make the mayor, the way he is in all other developed societies in which control has been decentralized, make him a de facto commissioner. He runs his police service. He gives his instructions about what he wants done in his city or in his county or in his corporation. And he has direct control of them. One of the troubling aspects of this, which obviously would take 5 sessions like this, is the reliance on this bill still for the Public Service Commission and the Statutory Commission. Those commissions are not closely connected to the issues related to those towns and cities, but a police officer who turns away a man that is injured and bleeding outside the doors of City Police Headquarters because he says that he got injured on the eastern side of Charlotte Street, and therefore he has to go and make that report in Besson Street and not at City Police, is still on the payroll because nothing can be done about it because of the Service Commission Act. And all of these issues, I wish to humbly submit to you, are urgently in need of attention if we really want to develop a delivery of service to ordinary people and provide the type of improvement in the circumstance and quality of life of the people that we are all seeking. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much,
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Aboud. Thank you to all our stakeholders who have accepted our invitation and have appeared and contributed. The committee itself was looking forward to a very involved session today, mainly because the bill sometime, legislation sometime could be very easy to draft, but it is always helped by people who know all the practical difficulties. For example, the question I asked Mr. Prote about the relationship between the traffic wardens and the municipal police and the corporation. In order to improve the bill, we need to get your views on the practicality of what has been drafted and the opportunities for improvement. So thank you very much. Thanks to the members, the representatives from the CPC, the Secretariat. This meeting is adjourned.